For people that don't know what FOMO is, why did you build it?
We just felt like there wasn't an addressable solution in the market to people who wanted to come into crypto, buy coins, and then also figure out what to do after they bought their first coin. There's a lot of solutions, there's a lot of vehicles to buy coins, but there's not a great way to know what you do after you buy your first coin.
There have been some people that have made six figures, like there's a couple of people that have made a little bit more than that. How do you think these people have been able to make so much money?
How many people in the world are interested in financial speculation and making more money? Every single person in the world. I think that's part of why we think like traders are the new athletes, right? They're going to have the biggest audience. There's going to be more people that are interested in financial speculation than there are virtually for any sport in the world. If I go watch the Lakers play and I look at LeBron, I get some joy, but it's not like I can then go out there and like strive to be LeBron James. It's just not possible. But if I go on FOMO and I see you put on this massive perp position and I get to see you in real time make a lot of money from nothing, it's like, okay, well, I can do that too. I think on-chain trading is just going to be the new trading. Like, I think in 5 years from now, we're not going to call it on-chain trading. We're just going to say, I bought this thing and I traded it. That's going to be the new norm.
What's going on, everybody? Today I am here with Say. He's one of the co-founders of Fomo, which is a social trading app that has over 600,000 users in only 12 months, which is super impressive. A lot of people already know about Fomo. It started as a mobile app, and now it also has a desktop app as well, which is what we're gonna go over all that stuff. We're gonna talk about all of that. But Say, I wanted to introduce you. Let us know a little bit about you, who you are, what Fomo is, and all that.
Yeah, I'll keep it brief. I know we've got a lot we want to get into. So yeah, I'm Say. I'm one of the co-founders here and predominantly work on product and go to market. Have been building FOMO for about a year and a half. We've had a product live for a little bit over a year now, but yeah, just got a really great group of individuals building towards trying to democratize access to things in crypto, whether that's spot, on-chain, tokenized equities, perps, prediction markets, all the stuff, we're interested in playing some part in at some point. So happy to be here and to dive into each of these things.
Yeah, for sure. So for people that don't know what FOMO is, why did you build it? What was the concept behind it? And what makes it different than a lot of these other trading platforms that are out there?
Yeah, I think the number one thing was we just felt like there wasn't an addressable solution in the market to people who wanted to come into crypto, buy coins, and then also figure out what to do after they bought their first coin. I think you can kind of think about early 2000s, people bought a lot of IPOs because their friends did. They didn't really know what to invest in after, and a lot of these people eventually got burned. I think that there's a lot of solutions, there's a lot of vehicles to buy coins, but there's not a great way to know what you do after you buy your first coin. How do you know what people are doing, what they're talking about, what's going on in the market? And that's why we wanted to build something where it was very easy to access crypto, but also to be able to have a social layer that just translates the blockchain into plain text English so you can see what's going on and, what other people are thinking in real time.
Yeah, I think the social aspect of it is one of the big differentiators. So for people that don't know, on the FOMO app and on the desktop app, both of them, there's this leaderboard. And so what people can do is they can have these profiles, and you set up a profile, you can buy coins, you can give a thesis on it. Like that's like one of the big things. And you can see why certain people are buying things. You can see the other things that they bought. So it's similar to having like a wallet tracker, but it's like a little bit more refined, and and there's like the social layer, so you can actually talk about it instead of just like, oh, I'm tracking a wallet, and then somebody buys something but you don't really know why. And there's also a leaderboard, which I want to talk about that, and I want to get your thoughts on, because the leaderboard is definitely an interesting thing. I think that, as we know, the internet has evolved to where people really want to they like to show off, they like to flex, they want to be competitive. And I think that's one of the big drivers of FOMO, at least from what I can tell. And so I'm interested to hear your thoughts on that and how the social layer has been implemented into FOMO, and how you think that it has been affecting the way that you guys have been having success and everything moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly important. Like, it's incredibly important because people learn from others, and that's just a natural way humans do things. But I think it's also important because if you're a good trader, the last thing you want to do is like post your own P&L or talk about a big trade. It's one of those things a little bit cringy. And if you think about who are the biggest people in CT from the last, 5, 10 years, they're all people who have made a lot of money, but they've never directly told you they made a lot of money, right? It's always been you find their wallet or you identify their trade or you have other people who share their wallets or talk about their trades. And it's never them just going like, I made $50 million, here's my P&L card. It's more so like, man, that guy, like he was right on with that, 1 cent and he wrote it all the way up. And this is definitely his wallet. And other people often talk about it. I think it is a little bit cringe to talk about your own victories, but it's not cringe if you do it publicly, right? So, let's take, for example, like GCR or Kobe or Ansem. Like, these guys made a lot of money, but they never put it in your face, right? They've never said, like, I'm rich, ha ha, here it is. But, you've been able to identify their profitability and in a lot of ways, like, gain respect for them, follow their future ideas, and understand why they think about things in the way they do. So I think FOMO just lets you do this in a way that's very natural. You come in because it's the best trading tool, but then you have the ability to just showcase your ability to everybody in real time without having to have, people saying you're LARPing or people saying you're bragging or whatever else it is.
So publicly, you've stated that you think that there should be more of an emphasis on buying good coins. Obviously, good in quotations, because we understand within crypto that that is very that's debatable, like, as to what is a good coin and what isn't. But there's these two types of cultures, right? There's the trenching culture, which has definitely taken over. It's like buying and selling things within a couple seconds. And then there's the old culture that we had when Solana first started popping off with meme coins and everything, where people would try to be early to coins so that they could hold them for a long period of time. And when I say a long period of time, I mean like a month, 2 months, 3 months. Like, some people were holding coins for a very long time. And so my question to you is, do you think that FOMO as a platform has been enticing people to hold better coins longer because of the social aspect that you did mention, and seeing exactly what you said before, which is like, oh, I see, and somebody who's really big, I see how they made their money. Oh, they did it because they were early to this coin that they held for a couple weeks, opposed to the other style, which is, oh, there's people that are just constantly trenching and buying 100 different coins all day long.
Yeah, so I think the good analogy here is like, let's say you go to a friend of yours and you're like, okay, here's two traders, right? One of them works at Jane Street. He's made $10 billion this year, but he's placed 100,000 trades a day. He's just scalping, high frequency trading, market making over and over again. Can you reproduce that? Are you interested? The answer is probably no. Like, I can't do that. That's not interesting to me. I would never win. Pass. Now get to your other friend and it's like, okay, this guy has taken 4 trades. He's talked about them the entire year. He's made $100 million. He's made substantially less, but he's done it all in public in real time. And these are all things where, he shared the information in such a way where you could benefit from it. Are you interested? Yes, I'm definitely interested. That is the modern day success story. That is the person that I want to learn from. That is the person I want to follow. And that is the game I want to play. If you think about a retail user, the reason they're not trading today is because not because they're not interested, but it's because the tooling is too difficult. The game is not worth it. And they just don't have a lot of time. They just don't have a lot of mind share. They don't have a lot of, drive to be wanting to, continue to perform in or can participate in the same markets that, as it exists today. So I think for us, it's really important that we can shed this notion that trading on chain is just about dumping on each other's heads after a 50% gain or buying a coin at 10K. And I don't really know when this phenomenon shifted, but I recall being in a group chat where, 5 mil was entry, right? That was like, okay, like I still have good entry. I can go buy 1%. Nowadays, like people meme about it, but you'll see somebody post a coin at 200K and they're like, man, I missed entry. And it's pretty crazy to think about how this has shifted. And if 200K is delayed, like it just is a game that very few people are going to be willing to play and very few people are going to make money in or even have the chance to compete in.
You mentioned that tooling and everything has gotten very advanced. And I think one of the reasons as to why back a couple years ago people were holding coins longer is because there were less of them. And then as time went on and more of these coins were coming out and it was a lot easier to launch them, people were saying to themselves, like, oh, well, there's going to be another coin. And we saw that liquidity would start moving into those like other coins when people got tired of the one that had already been out for a little bit. And that started leading to PvP and vamps and all that kind of thing. And I think one of the reasons, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm interested to hear your thoughts. I think one of the reasons why people have started to use FOMO and why it became popular is because I think it started to let people know like, hey, this is why somebody is holding a certain coin. And even though there might be like a PvP or a vamp attempt on it, you could kind of see as to like what people are saying about it, and you can see who's in it and why they're in it. And I think that that was one of the things that started to change things a little bit, because we have actually started to see that there have been certain coins that haven't been like PvP'd and vamped recently. Do you think that that's because of the market starting to mature? Do you think that FOMO has had a part of that?
I think so. I don't know if it's because the market has matured, but I think it's more so that we're shedding light on the people who are doing it, right? I think if a coin launches and there's a lot of nuance with PvP, right? If it's, a coin takes off, there's an older version or there's a version with the original team or CTO, like there is nuance here. And I think it's hard to determine, what is the right token to buy then. But there's clear PvP that is nefarious, which is token launches, it gets some traction. Somebody else decides, I don't have entry, so I'm going to go launch another token. And that is just objectively bad behavior, right? Because unless there's like some very big reason for why you did that, which is maybe, okay, it's 99% bundled, they're going to dump on you, whatever. Shy of that, it's just nefarious to go launch something else just because you don't have entry. And I think people have started to do it less and less because FOMO shows you who is that person who's trying to be malicious. Who is that person that's going to start that coin and say this is the real coin just because they didn't get entry? And I think that this social behavior is actually something that is, net good because you want people to stop doing these things. If there's a narrative, let it run. If you don't have entry, look for entry, right? Do things that are within your control that don't actually kind of jeopardize the entire narrative or the entire momentum of the coin. And I think that that's something that the public can definitely agree is net bad if you do. So I think we just shed more accountability into who's doing right, who's doing wrong, and at the end of the day, your reputation is something that goes a long way.
So FOMO has been out for a little bit at this point, and a lot of people have been using it, especially like over the past, I would say, 6 months for sure. And there have been some people that have made like mid six figures. Like there's a couple people that have made a little bit more than that. I know it's tough to say an exact reason as to why that is, but if you look at something like FOMO, which is it's not, as you even mentioned, like, it's not like it's the most built out thing, like it's very social based. And there are people that are just on their phone, barely looking at charts besides like what's on the app. You like, hit a couple buttons, you give a thesis, and these people have made all this money. How do you think these people have been able to make so much money? Do you think that it is because they are using their platform, or do you think that it is simply because good traders are in good coins?
I think it's the latter thing, as much as we want to think we're helping people, become 100 times better traders, it's not that drastic of a difference, right? We just give you tooling. Ultimately, at the end of the day, alpha discovery, execution, these are all things that ultimately matter more than anything else. And the person who does the trading has to determine, what does their execution look like? Where is their alpha coming from? How good is the alpha? And just, make decisions as a human. So I think maybe we had some edge because you have some information you might not have seen otherwise. Maybe we let you do things more efficiently. Maybe we let you, develop a stronger thesis because you see what other people are saying. But I think these are people that just innately have the drive and the ability to do well. And I often talk about how I think that the best traders, can do anything, right? It's not like there's a specific talent that you're good for and that's all you can do and nothing else will be worthwhile in your life. I tend to find that the top 1% of anything can apply themselves and be good in pretty much anything in the world, right? Shy of, let's say, sports or shy of something where you need to be gifted in some way that's not possible to learn. But yeah, if you just look at any industry, like it's hard to say that somebody like Elon, who builds electric cars and rockets, wouldn't have been, a really good, I don't know, chess player or a really good trader or a really good XYZ. So I think that the people who are the best typically they have innate abilities to grind, to learn, to really hone in on their intuition, and to be able to learn how to apply these things in real time.
So you've talked to a lot of these guys who have made mid six figures within a couple months trading on FOMO. And so from your perspective, what do you think separates the good traders from the bad traders? And why do you think these people that are making so much, why do you think that they are able to do it?
Yeah, I put out a tweet the other day, it might have been yesterday. It's like, I think that trading is modern day tastemaking. And I think when you're trading the coins that we do, you're really trading attention and you're trading mind share and you're trading, the ability to sense where the puck is going, right? So a lot of the top traders, they're able to spot something early and they're able to develop a thesis. They're able to supplement their thesis either by seeing how the price moves, seeing how, macro tailwinds or market news or what other people are saying, and just determine, are they, reinforcing their thesis? Are they lessening their thesis? Are they adding on? Are they taking profits? Are they, doing all these things in between? And I think the best people can take all of this information in and just intuitively make the right decision. And often when you ask these people, like, why did you make this decision? Like, why did you add on at the 2x instead of selling? It's not easy to articulate, right? Because intuition is something that is learned. It is something that you have to feel, and it's something that often happens subconsciously. So I just tend to think that, it's something that just happens at a natural level. And the more you do it, the more you get a sense for. And the people who are working on sharpening their craft in whatever way works for them are going to be people who continue to outperform over the course of time.
Yeah, I think that the people that are able to make decisions quick with the information that they're able to go pull is what really matters, right? It's all about, as you know, there's obviously speed that comes into it. Like, you have to go out, you need to pull this research, you need to say to yourself, like, is this the right coin? Okay, I've seen a coin like this in the past. Okay, it did this well because this person was pushing it. They're like, there's all these different scenarios. And I think that once you've spent a lot of time going back and looking at different coins and saying, like, why did this one do well compared to this one? I think that plays a lot into it. And a lot of it also comes down to disassociating from the money. That's something that I know for sure that the best traders, they definitely do, is they'll look at a trade, and if they make, $2,000, they're like, okay, great, and then they just look for the next trade. Whereas, like, there will be someone else who will be like, oh, I just lost $2,000. That was, that could have gone towards rent. And so I've heard from professional poker players and like other traders and stuff that one of the big things that you have to do is disassociate, because once you become emotionally attached and you start putting that a dollar amount to a certain thing that you spend that money on, then you start to make worse decisions, which is also one of the reasons why I've always said that, like, until you have enough to be able to sustain a lifestyle over, a couple years, whatever that may look like for you, that it makes sense to not be like a full-time trader. Cause like I wasn't a full-time trader until I figured out that it was something that I was good at. But yeah, I'm interested to hear like what you think about all that.
No, I absolutely agree. I often think about the thing that Kobe used to talk about, which is like, he made a lot of money trading. He's one of the goats.
Yeah.
But he talked about like he needs a full-time job. Like he needs to be working on something because he trades well when like he can let a thesis play out over time versus staring at the charts. And we've all had those moments where like great setup, great thesis, great conviction, poor execution. And it's often not that anything was invalidated, but it's often that you're just staring at it, and you stare at something long enough, it starts to take different shapes and forms. Um, and I definitely agree on the cognitive dissonance part. It's like you think about people who are really good at, let's say, sports betting. They often don't bet on their favorite teams because there's a bias there, there's emotion, there's passion, and you have to kind of remove yourself from that landscape, which a lot of people cannot do. So, the best people that I know that bet in sports, they actually don't even bet in sports that they watch. Like they don't go bet on, basketball because they're watching the finals. They'll go bet on cricket. They'll go bet on WNBA. They'll go bet on, soccer in some league they've never heard of because they view it from a very different lens of, I have a system and I'm going to let the system do its work versus I'm going to dictate, the execution of the system, which often ends up being faulty since we're all human at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's interesting. You definitely have to remove bias from everything. There's no doubt, like, especially when it comes to like sports betting. I mean, that's like a whole other conversation in and of itself. But yeah, like, I have talked to people that also do trade, and they'll either have their own business or they'll be making content or they'll be doing something else, because it seems like there's a lot of people that they just want to, like, sit at your desk and you want to trade and everything. And a lot of people put too many eggs in one basket, which depending on your situation, of course, like, if you're young, you don't have a family and stuff, like, maybe you're a little bit more risk on because you have like that time and ability to be that way. But I think especially in meme coins, one of the things that you see very often is that people will they'll be over leveraged, or they'll not make the right decisions because they're too emotional. And so I've actually seen that a lot of the people that I know that I've talked to, they like, man, like they'll lose 50 to 100K and they won't even blink. Like I even told you a couple weeks ago, like I lost a trade and I was really upset about it because it was like a good amount of money. And then a couple days later, I just like went right back in, made half of it back. And it's really just about like, keeping the ball rolling. So yeah, I mean, with all that being said, the market obviously hasn't been as hot as it was a year or two ago, and we're starting to see a shift for sure. We know that the stock market and everything has been going absolutely insane. So with all of that being said, there's there's definitely, at least from what I can tell, when it comes to on chain, there have been certain coins that have been doing a lot better than uh, I would say like recently, like these mid cap coins, whether it's something like Neat or Cards or anything like that, that's not like a sub 1 million market cap shitter. And one of the things that I did notice is that I saw a post where people were saying that the top traders on FOMO were outperforming like the top trenchers. And so I wanted to hear your thought on that because as we know, the market has shifted, but it has definitely been shifting from, like I said, there being people that are holding like bigger coins opposed to trading smaller coins. And so what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think the market has cycles, and there's going to be times where it makes sense to trade a lot more attention more frequently. There's going to be times where you just, select your winners and step away. And there's even times where like you just decide not to trade at all. I think that third category of stepping away and just recalibrating is something that not enough people do well. It's something that I'm terrible at. Like I feel like I can't just be in cash. I need to be exposed. And it was so bad actually for me that I had to put my cash into a place where I couldn't access it. Like, if I accessed it, I'd have severe penalties and I'd have to, pay somebody money or do something that was really inconvenient. And I felt that that has helped because often you're your own worst enemy, right? And one of the things that I thought was really interesting is I don't know if you know Jordy Alexander, but he runs Selene Capital, and they're one of the bigger market makers in crypto now. But he said that for the last whatever 10 years, he's generated 100% return on his trading portfolio, and it's always been 100%. And the reason for that is once he hits 100%, he just logs off. Like he knows that there's maybe additional squeeze to be had, there's more profits to be made, there's more opportunities, but he might hit that in the month of January and then log off for the rest of the year because he uses that time to, hone new skills, build new systems, be ready for the next thing. And I think it's really something that I admire because I could never do that, right? Like I hit my 100% and I'm like, all right, how do I get to 200? How do I get to 300? How do I get to 400? So I think that every market has its strong suits and every person has their strong suits, but you need to be able to identify what that is. And sometimes that just means not being in the market or not being in the market in the same ways that you would otherwise. And the people who can determine what those are often not only outperform, but they also just have a better life. And I think that that also leads to outperformance in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, one of the things on the question that I posed, which, is about like holding bigger coins compared to trenching, is that I feel like there are people that what they've been doing is they have just basically been constantly like new pair, like over and over and over again, like buy, sell, buy, sell. And a lot of people don't have the time to do that. Um, and it's also like it's very stressful. There's not a lot of coins that have been breaking above like even 50K. Whereas 2 years ago, there were coins like if you were early to something, even at a million, like you said earlier, it would go to like 100, 2 or 300 million. And so, like, being early meant, hey, I wanna be early to, like, the next 2, $300 million market cap runner, not like, "Oh, we're gonna buy this at, like, 10K and then sell it at 50K." And so I think that when that shifted, people started to go and buy bigger coins that are, like, a little bit more established because they're like, "Look, the market is the way it is." You said, like, there's market cycles and everything, and what they're doing is they're taking a step back and they're like, I want to put my money somewhere, kind of like what you're saying, where I don't have to look at the chart. I do think it's like a good on chain asset, and I can just take that step back. I can put it into something and I don't have to check it all the time. And that's how it used to be a year or two ago until like the trenching culture got very glorified. So, my question to you on that is, in the next cycle, what do you think that is going to look like? What do you think the average trader is going to be? Because you did also mention earlier, before our call, that you thought that that traders are like the next athletes, and I think that a lot of people will compare like trenchers and trading and everything to Fortnite. And with that being said, I do think that there are different styles. And so I'm interested to hear your thought as to which style of trading is going to end up being the more lucrative, if there's like one over the other, or do you just think that it's going to continue to be both?
So I think there's two parts to this answer. I think one, for the vast majority of people, something on a medium to longer time frame is just going to be better off, right? It's going to be the thing that works for most people. With that said, I think the second part to this answer is you can kind of think about it like track and field, where there's the 100 meter, the 200 meter, the 400, the 16, the 32, and then like let's say expanding that to even like half marathons, marathons, and ultras. There is a pace that is going to be right for you, and just because one doesn't fit doesn't mean the other doesn't as well, right? You can kind of take the counter example we've been talking about where maybe you're just really bad at long-term theses and everything you've ever thought was going to happen has just never panned out. Maybe you're just better off on like attention trading in 30-second increments. So maybe you run the 100 meter instead of the ultra marathon. And I think that that's an important distinction because if you look at who dominates each of those fields in the real world in track and field, you can't get Usain Bolt to become, Eliud Kipchoge. Like it's just not going to happen. And you're good at what you're good at, and you learn that over time through trial and error, through practice, through just results. And sometimes you can lie to yourself and say, this is the thing that I'm good at. But if you really stare at the numbers, you can see what you're good at, right? You can't fake being a fast runner in the 100 if you think you are because there's numbers, right? It's objective. The same thing with trading. You have a P&L, you have drawdowns, you have your portfolio. So if you think you're good at scalping, but you look at 6 months of data and you're like, man, I've just lost money every month. Like you're probably not good at it, right? So it's a matter of just finding your skill set. And I don't think there's a one answer fits all here. I think people are generally better off doing one thing over the other, but we're going to be good at different things and you got to find your strong suit.
So you're the co-founder of a trading platform, and it has already been very successful, which I do want to get into a little bit. But as the co-founder of a new trading platform, which is FOMO, of course, what do you think is the future of on-chain? Because obviously that's what the platform was built on, right? Is the idea of like on-chain, and we're starting to see stocks and everything come on-chain, and we've even seen like, other platforms that, Perps have come on-chain. So obviously that is a huge part as to what you are building in your business model. So what do you think the future of on-chain looks like over the next 6 to 12 months? If you're building and putting all of your time into a platform that basically revolves around that.
Yeah, I think it's akin to we talk about this a lot internally, but it's akin to when, in the early 2000s, let's say 2005, you went from trading as you knew it to electronic trading, right? NASDAQ, IC, they decided to acquire all these companies that were specialized in electronic trading because that was the future. I think we're starting to see a very similar thing happen now, 20 something years later, where you're starting to see things move onto blockchain rails. And it's not for the sake of anything other than it is just structurally more efficient globally. It's just something where blockchains are running all the time. They're verified by certain proofs. There's different ways to do these things, and it's just going to be much more efficient than traditional guardrails. So I think on-chain trading is just going to be the new trading. Like I think in 5 years from now, we're not going to call it on-chain trading. We're just going to say, I bought this thing and I traded it, and that's going to be the new norm. I think you see legacy systems start to phase out. They'll still have their own share of things, just like you see whenever you go from one era to another, there's always some amount of it that sticks around for a period of time. And maybe I'm wrong on time horizon, maybe it's more like 50 years instead of 5 years, but inevitably this just feels like the best piece of technology to support a global financial system. And Yeah, we're excited by it. That's what we're building towards, where you can abstract everything away. Crypto is just the guardrails in which things happen. But, we're on this call today and, you don't really think about which AWS server is this being hosted on, right? That's not something that the normal person has to worry about. And I envision a similar future where we get to say the same thing about crypto guardrails, where it's there, it's fast, it's efficient, and it probably gets disrupted by something greater in the future. But for now, I think this is just the next greatest thing. And we serve to benefit not just from trading, but for every single piece of value transfer that exists by using crypto guardrails.
Over the past 6 months, there has been the initial emphasis on meme coin trading and on chain assets like that. You guys recently announced that you are also launching a perp arm to FOMO as well. So, what is that going to look like? And what is going to be the benefit of using something like FOMO when it comes to perpetual futures?
Yeah, our main goal here is we just want to be stewards of the good technology that people want to use. So there was a hole in how do I, trade on chain? We want to solve that issue. There's a hole in, people hear this thing hyperliquid or lighter or perpetual futures or whatever it is, but how do you use the thing? It's really hard to, I think, deliver great technology to people early. It often happens much, much later down the line when, it's been institutionalized, it's been broadly regulated, and it's been, put into a place where there's very clear-cut ways of how to do it, and often they're very, high friction. But I think for us, we think this is gonna be a product that just helps us distribute to, more and more people in the world, right? We think that there's gonna be a lot more regulatory framework and clarity around how you do this in a compliant way, how you offer it to users, how you screen people, and how you just give people more access to financial markets, right? You think about how even 6 months ago, it was really hard to trade a Korean stock when the market was doing well. It was really hard to understand, how do I trade oil? It's really hard for a lot of people outside the US to trade US equities. Like, we think that that is something that everybody does, but that market segment is so small because it's just not something that's easy to do. I just heard this story with a new angel investor of ours who was like, yeah, like my brother's in India and he can't trade US stocks and I can't trade stocks there. So we just like have a notepad where we talk about how much we owe each other after trades because you just pay each other. And it's 2026 and like AI is revolutionizing the world and you still need a notepad to keep balances with your brother across the world for an asset that should be available everywhere. So I think that these are things that are going to bring a lot more accessibility to people. And we think that the front end that can do it or the distribution vehicle that can do it is going to be one that holds a lot of value in the world of society. You think about how, Robinhood itself is worth more than NASDAQ. And, there's just a lot of these examples where the distribution layer matters a lot. And we think that nobody's better suited than us to actually distribute this to, billions of people over the course of the next few years.
So, there's going to be a social aspect to the perp feature as well, right?
Absolutely, yeah. This is just, the same as spot where I would argue that you probably have some of the bigger P&Ls and the bigger traders in perps because they're more mature assets, they move differently, they're traded globally across many different exchanges. So I think that you just have the ability to speculate on a lot broader, array of assets, and you can do them in very different ways. And I'm actually excited to see how that pans out in the social graph.
Yeah, I am too. I think that that's one of those things that right now, the way that people know what people are doing is just based on chain stuff. So, for example, you see these tweets all the time about how people are getting liquidated or they're making a lot of money, big names and stuff, and it's because we just know who their wallets are, right? But we have to go on like X to do it, right? It's not like there's just like a specific app or anything. Like right now, if I wanted to wallet track on like for perps or something like that, you could technically do it, but uh, you have to go in and put like a little bit of work opposed to like if you're using this app people can also share like why they're doing something, which I think is like the context that's always missing because there will be people that will post on X and they'll say like, "Oh, I'm shorting the market, everything's going to go to zero." And then a week later they'll be like, "Oh, I told you so," when it ends up happening. But there's that aspect of like you can see how much they put on the trade, which is so different because it's like, sure, you can just sit on your computer and you can say, yeah, the market's going to dump. But to have that additional confirmation of like, oh, they think the market's going to dump, but they're also putting their money where their mouth is. And I can see that they did it. That's like a totally different thing. And I think that that's like one of the big one of the big advantages of something like this in the way that you're planning on doing it, at least from my perspective, because I think that there's just so much noise. Like people love to yap, but like I want to be hearing from the people that make money, right? Like, and I want to know that it's actually legit.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest issue that we'll solve through the social proofing here is a lot of people LARP, right? Like you trade on a centralized exchange and you have this P&L card, but AI is so good that like you can't even tell it's photoshopped and people trade on demo accounts and people LARP about, things on chain even and they get proven wrong. And there's just so many of these occurrences that I think for the first time in history, we're going to be able to verify these directly on chain in native English, right? Or native, whatever your tongue is, as we localize languages. And that's powerful. I think that's part of why we think like traders are new athletes, right? They're going to have the biggest audience. There's going to be more people that are interested in financial speculation than there are virtually for any sport in the world. Like, take the biggest sport in the world. I believe it's soccer, right? The World Cup. How many people are interested in it? Maybe a billion, maybe 2 billion. How many people in the world are interested in financial speculation and making more money? Every single person in the world, whether you're 5 or 15 or 55. So I think the audience is much bigger. There's a lot more money and there's a lot more actionability, right? If I go watch, the Lakers play and I look at LeBron, I get some joy, but it's not like I can then go out there and like strive to be LeBron James. It's just not possible. But if I go on FOMO and, I see you put on this massive perp position and I get to see you in real time make a lot of money from nothing, it's like, okay, well, I can do that too. Why can't I just, learn why you did it, how you did it, learn from your thoughts, educate myself and perform in the same ways. So it's really cool. And I'm really excited to see what the future looks like as I think more and more AI commoditization happens. Risk and how much money you're putting behind verified on chain is going to be the thing that separates you from somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think so as well. I think obviously being able to make money off of the education that you have and like understanding the game that you're playing, especially with unlimited upside, I think that's why I like trading so much and why I do it is because if you look at like any other like Fortnite or something, that is very capped as to how much you could potentially make because it's within like a certain arena where there's a company that puts up pricing and like all that kind of stuff. Whereas with this, it's like you're talking about financializing literally everything, every market, every stock, like metals, all of that. And I think that that's like the big thing that makes this different is it's like you can be quick in a video game and you can process that information fast, but what do you gain out of it, right? Like, yeah, maybe you have fun. I'm here so that I can take the information that I have and be able to put it to the best possible use while also adding the risk factor to it of like the money, right? Like what you're putting on, like it, because ideally, I mean, or really what it comes down to is when you're trading, you are taking a bet on your own thesis based on information that you have available and based on what you think other people are going to care about. And I think like that's the main thing is people want to know a little bit more as to how to do that, which I think is one of the things that really lacks in terms of content, because there is just not a lot of people that are that are successful traders that walk through why they did certain things and how they made money. A lot of people love to just like throw out P&Ls and stuff. So I feel like that's like one of the big reasons as to why I think that people will eventually catch on to a more in-depth social trading style of app, mainly just because it's not just, oh, this person bought something, they must know something. It's, oh, they bought something. Now they're telling us like what they know.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And I just don't think you've had a way to do this before. Like people post charts on Twitter, they have their group chats, but there's not been this one place where you can do all these things. And I think the world is starting to take notice, right? It's like it's becoming evidently clear that social has some part in trading. And whether it's happening on the platform, whether it's happening elsewhere or in, broader communities, like it is happening. So how do you create an experience where you can see that all in one place and remove friction as much as possible? It's through an app like FOMO, and we want to create a better experience both on mobile and web. And actually, I think social is a thing that we've neglected. We've launched. It's been really good for solidifying stickiness and getting people to interact, but we really haven't added much social since we've launched in last 13 months. And there's a lot we want to do there. I think people are going to be pleasantly surprised as this evolves to feel more like an Instagram or more like a Twitter. And, we really lean into the things that make people better traders over time. So excited to share that with the world in the coming months, but that's top of mind for us.
For sure. With all that being said, one of the things that I did want to just bring up is the fact that FOMO has already taken a good amount of market share when it comes to trading platforms. On-chain trading is obviously huge. We know this. A lot of people like to use platforms opposed to just using something like Uniswap or Jupiter. And there have been a lot of people that have come out and they've launched platforms, and we've seen that over time. Like, we've seen all the different things. Like, if you've been here for a while, people have tried a lot of different things. You have built a successful platform in this space, which I think is really impressive. And one of the things that I wanted to just ask you while we were here is, first of all, how does it feel to have done that? And second of all, like, how did that happen? Because I know we were talking a lot about the trading and, like, the market and what that looks like. But from a builder standpoint, I also think that there's a lot to be said for the fact that people have tried like different things, and it's obviously really tough to get a platform to do well long term in crypto. And you guys have managed to do that so far. And so, yeah, my question is, like, first of all, like, how does it feel? And then second of all, like, how did you do it?
Yeah, I appreciate the kind words. I think internally, if you ask us, like, we feel like we've really done nothing yet. We've been able to find the wedge, service some users, but in the grand scheme of things, like, we only have 600,000 users, right? There's hopefully 6 billion plus that want to use FOMO and will use it every day. And I think that we are still learning as we go. So there's a lot of things that we plan to build. There's a lot of things we want to optimize. But yeah, I think from our perspective, like, we haven't really accomplished much just yet. And we say that humbly. Like, I think that there's a lot we want to do. We might never get to do all of it, but it's worth trying. And it's all about, the effort. It's all about the process. And for us, like, that's what drives us every day. It's not so much the outcome, but it's how much more can we do to increase, financial adoption of the things that exist in crypto in the real world. And, if you ask us like what percentage of the way were we there, it's probably like 0.0001%, right? So there's a broader goal in mind. And I think, we work every day as much as we can to strive to get to that goal. And I think that, like, the important thing for us is we understand that when things are going well, it's hard to tell, what's wrong, what's breaking, or where the foundation is loose. So you kind of need these moments where things don't go well to understand, okay, here are the cracks, here are the things we need to scale, here are the things we need to work on. And, whether that's forced by the market or whether that's forced by growth, these are things that you inevitably have to face. So it's something we think about a lot. I think there's a lot of things we can do better. There's a lot of holes. There's a lot of users in my DMs every day telling me what's wrong and what they want to see. So we need to be able to action that each and every day. And if we're not better than the last, then we're not making any progress.
Yeah. No, it's good to hear. Just because it's like a very candid kind of thing, right? It's really like about the product market fit, trying new things, pushing forward with it, being able to identify like what's next. And I think that without like speaking for you, I do think that like the concept of like, oh, we've seen leaderboards before, but it doesn't really like help provide info. And I think that the fact that we know that a lot of people do go and they will say like, oh, why does this person think the way that they do? And there's an incentive for somebody who is posting a thesis on a trade, because a lot of people have ego. Like, a lot of people want to feel as if like, they're helping people, and they also want to be known as somebody who knows what they're talking about. And there's a lot of people that get a lot of gratification out of that. And so it's like you're pretty much providing a channel to be able to do that. Whereas like in the past, it wasn't really like that, besides maybe just like posting on Twitter, which of course, like there's some people that have taken advantage of that and everything. But there's been people that I've seen on FOMO, and I'm like, yeah, it is really cool to see that, like, they got this one right and this one right. And like, I like when people are active because then they'll explain why they did something. And it helps me understand, like, because when you're trading, it's things are different than they were 3 months ago, 6 months ago. And so if there might be somebody that is trading really well and you can see what they're saying, you can take that into what you're doing on a daily basis and say like, oh, there was like a little bit of a shift and I might not have caught on it yet, but like they helped bring that up. And so in my opinion, like, I still wallet track, like I still obviously like use FOMO as well to see like what people are trading and when. But the reason why I do it is not necessarily to like copy other people, more so to just like remain sharp and then use it to continue to trade the way that I have been trading that made me like the money that got me to where I am now.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I'm actually curious to understand, like, how do you think that plays into content? Like, do they go hand in hand? Are they at odds at times? Like, what is the way you view the relationship of like content and trading when it comes to staying in the market and being apprised to like what's going on?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking me a question. I actually have like a couple thoughts on that, which is that um there's two different routes that people can take. They can trade and be anonymous and not say anything ever, and they can just make their money and then they can just go on with their life. We know that there's a lot of wallets that are on chain that you'll never know who they are. A lot of people are really good and whatnot. And then I think that there's the other side of it, where people do want to be content creators. This is the era of the content creator. 50 years ago, only a handful of celebrities like were famous, obviously. Nowadays, like there are ways that you can go out and you can get big, right? Like you can be well known. And a lot of people want to be known as somebody who's smart and they want to be like known as somebody to look to. I know a lot of people that have made tons of money and now like their main thing is they're just focusing on content because they're like, I made money, but like I want to show other people how I did it. And I think you just have to tune out all the people that constantly are like, "Oh, you're only posting about this because you're trying to like, dump on your followers and everything like that," because you can't have it both ways. Like if good traders never share anything and they stay to themselves, then the people that aren't as educated will never like have anywhere to learn from. So it's like there have to be people that go out and share good theses on what it is that they're doing. And people just have to understand that they click their own buttons and that they're not just, like if somebody tells me if like I see some like a post or somebody like posed a thesis or something, I always have to say to myself, I understand that I'm just taking this information and they might be right or wrong, but that's where the maturity comes in for me as a trader. Like I'll always know that any decision that I make is either, it's my fault, like if it doesn't go well, or, like if it does go well, at least I took the right risk. So I think that there has always been that misalignment where people will always beg for big creators to like talk about their coin or talk about the trades that they're in, but then those people will also get the most shit because, as we know, with any market, things go up and down. And I think it really just comes down to intent. Like, there's people that are out there that are obviously doing it maliciously, but there's a lot of really good people out there that they just want to make trades, talk about what they're doing. They want to, be well known, and then continue to just like grow a brand and be a content creator in crypto, which is a hard place to be a creator. So that was like a long-winded answer, but I hope that even answers like your question to me.
No, it does, and it's always great to get the perspective from the other side, right? Because from our perspective, our job is to take traders and make them celebrities, right? Give them a platform, give them a voice, give them the ability to share with their audiences, and hopefully just find a community. And I think it's cool with somebody like you because you've already done that to some extent, so you have the perspective of like, what does this look like intra-flight? What does this look like as you do it in real time? And yeah, it's people like you that we can learn from as a platform to understand like how do we support the best traders? How do we get them a platform? And how do we elevate their ability to just grow as people over the course of time?
Oh yeah, no doubt. Since we've already run through a lot of this stuff, is there anything else that you wanted to just say as like closing thoughts?
Um, that's a good question. I think we've covered pretty much everything here. Um, I think the only thing that I would leave as parting thoughts is if, you're a trader today and you're starting to develop an audience, like really lean into it, right? There's a lot of these people that have come through FOMO who have now created accounts, right? Let's say Change, let's say Iceman, or even people who have had accounts like Remus or Logjam. And they provide thoughts every day on the market, and it's my favorite thing to look at. I love seeing what they're thinking. I love knowing that they came from this, like, place where maybe, they had a few thousand followers, now they're at, like, 20, 30, 40,000, and they have a platform, and they're able to lean into that and grow organically. So I think that if, you're placing trades, you're doing well, you're ideating and executing at a high level, like people want to hear your thoughts. Like people always will want to hear your thoughts. And, you should feel very encouraged to lean into doing so because chances are, it's going to exercise your muscle, make you a better trader as well over the course of time.
Yeah. No, I think that that's definitely a good closing thought. Because I've seen it too. Like I have seen like there's been people that always say, "Oh, the best alpha always comes from accounts that have less than 1,000 followers." And then once you are able to see them do well on chain, those people grow, and so it ends up like really reinforcing, hey, if you have like a good thesis, if you're good, now you have a place to where you can build a platform because of it. And it's all because of like how skilled you were. And it's not about, oh, you were LARPing. So like I think that's definitely like a big part of it. But yeah, with all that being said, like congrats on the launch of the perp feature. I know that there's gonna be like a lot more of that that ends up coming from you guys like as time goes on. And I know that you guys are gonna iterate on that. Thank you for your time, per usual. I'm excited to continue to I'm excited to continue to work with you guys on all this stuff, and I think you definitely have like a good insight on the market and why you're doing what you're doing. So yeah, guys, if you're not already following Say, I'll make sure to put his socials down below. Obviously, as I mentioned, co-founder of Fomo. I'll be posting about updates and stuff that they will be doing over time. But yeah, thank you for your time. And yeah, if you don't have anything else, then we're just gonna close out of this.
Awesome. Thanks, Ash. Appreciate the time as always. Always
Yeah.
like fire.
Yeah. Thank you, man. All right. As per usual, like, comment, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. Take it easy, and I'll see you guys in the next one.